Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start with a story about a surprising encounter with a crazy lady at the end of a workday. But before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button, smash the like if you enjoy the content, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a juicy story. I'm telling your manager you're stealing boxes. This just happened as I was leaving work tonight. Some background. I work in a copy center in the local edition of a major national office supply retail chain. I don't have a car and normally either walk the mile home or try to get a ride with a coworker, as most have to go past my place to get home anyway, and I always ask and never assume. My store manager, GM, is currently in the process of moving, and tonight we were leaving at the same time and I asked him for a ride home. He said it was fine and asked me to help him load some empty boxes we had saved into his pickup to help with the move. So 6 p.m. rolls around, I clock out, put away my radio, put on my coat, and grab a cart and head to the office and start loading the boxes into it. Enter self-important Karen. Karen, what are you doing? Me, helping my coworker with these boxes. Mind you, my coat is open and my uniform shirt and name tag are still visible. Karen, that's stealing. You shouldn't steal boxes from another company. Background. We're literally the only store that wears red shirts for a good 30-minute drive in any direction. Our plaza also plays home to a national grocery chain with a Hawaiian shirt fetish, a salon, and 3 women's clothing stores. There used to be a men's suit store, but it closed now. I just scoff and say, whatever, and start wheeling the cart to the front. Karen follows me, and as I get to the door, GM and the closing manager are walking up from the other side of the store, talking about GM's upcoming move. I look to the closing cashier and cheerfully say, "See you Monday, Jay." I start out the door and Karen grabs me and starts screeching about me stealing from the store. I immediately look at her and snarl, "You have 5 seconds to get your hands off of me before I call the police." Then she slaps me. Unbeknownst to everyone except the coworker who was closing my department, the town's chief of police was in the store to pick up a birthday gift that he'd ordered. When he heard her screeching, he turned to see the commotion. He saw the slap, so did my GM, the other manager, the cashier, 3 other customers, and the store security cameras. 10 minutes later, Karen's sitting on the curb in front of the store, screaming like a possessed banshee with a new pair of bracelets. There's 2 town police cars and a state police cruiser with their lights flashing in the parking lot. Some illegal stuff the chief found in her purse is on the hood of his car. I heard the words distribution weight. I'm giving the chief my info and GM's telling him to take my statement tomorrow when I'm back on the clock. Update. Just finished giving my statement to the police. She's being charged with assault, possession with intent to distribute, driving on a suspended license. Her car was in the lot and hers was the only fingerprints found inside, and also had a warrant out for failing to meet with her probation officer. I think some of that distribution weight was inside her before she did this incredibly stupid thing that I presume she otherwise wouldn't have done. And our second story. Sure, I can use my cell phone. Some years ago, back when Skype was the most advanced meeting tool around, I was the most junior person on a team of 5 working on a large international project. Though I was there to help with technical aspects of the job, a number of administrative tasks also ended up in my lap. Things like scheduling and connecting meetings and so on, despite there being an administrative assistant on the team. That's because the admin assistant was downright unhelpful and the team lead was frustrating with her and taking it out on the rest of the team. For example, I'd been with the team for almost 4 months and they still hadn't sorted out a desk or cube for me. I was literally doing my work with a work laptop sitting in a coffee shop and using my cell phone. One day, the senior technical officer announced he'd have to go to a tiny Pacific Island state, Samoa, I think, for a week-long trip to sort out a mess on an older project he'd been involved with that had gone sideways, and leaves for a 48-hour flight time to Samoa on a Saturday. On Monday, the team lead sends everyone on the team an email saying we'll do a weekly check-in call instead of a meeting on Wednesday afternoon, and asks me to set up the call and connect everyone. I reply almost immediately asking if I can borrow someone's desk for the duration of the call because otherwise it'd cost $6.50 a minute for me to call Samoa from my cell phone versus using a desk phone at work, which all costs are automatically paid for. He replies copying the admin assistant telling me to talk to her. Over the next couple of days, I asked the admin assistant for a desk or a cube for an hour on Wednesday. No. Can she connect the call instead? No. How about me coming over, connecting the call on her phone and then leaving? No. Does she have any suggestions? No. It's Wednesday morning and I don't have a solution, so I call the team lead and he thinks I've been insufficiently creative and just snarkily replies, "Just use your phone." I remind him it'll be hugely expensive, but he's pissed with the admin assistant and with me by extension and just says we'll sort it out later. Okay then, so I make the call from my phone connecting all 5 of us. It's supposed to be a 30-minute call. It ends up being over 70 minutes. And then the senior technical officer in Samoa says, "By the way, I think I'm going to have to stay another week. There's a contract dispute as well as a technical issue with the project." "No problem, we'll do the same call again next week, same time, same way," says the team lead. I start right after that call with trying to find a way to call from a desk phone. No joy. I again plead with the team lead to let me just use someone's office for an hour for the call. No joy. So off we go to another 50-minute call on Wednesday. The cell phone bill closed on Tuesday of the second week, and I get it on Thursday, so on Friday I submit an expense request for the $470-ish in charges, plus 10% taxes and fees. My team lead's manager immediately rejects it and sends a message to my team lead asking WTF happened here. Team lead tries to throw me under the bus. I reply with the chain of emails and make it abundantly clear that this is a reimbursable cost and they have to pay. The manager's pissed, but begrudgingly agrees, telling me it's a one-time thing. Well, actually, we had a second call yesterday, and that's on the next month's bill. That'll be around $400. Had they let me use a desk phone for 2 hours, the cost would have been about $20, and it would have been picked up by the company's central telephone budget instead of having to be paid out of the team's budget. I quit the team about 3 weeks later when the admin assistant started trying to assign me work. I hope you got the second call reimbursed since you left only 3 weeks later, presumably before your next phone bill arrived. And our next story. You want hot peppers? You got it. So I didn't do this, but I was there when my coworker did. I'm from New England and my coworker, let's call him Char, was from the South, and with a don't push your luck attitude. We both working at a store called, let's call it The Hen. Now, the person he got this oh-so-sweet revenge on, let's call him Grant, is an avid barfly and would come to our store drunk as a skunk. We made sandwiches there, and Grant loved the chicken salad we had. As of late, Grant had been getting more drunk and acting like a jerk, making a mess, and we had to move him away from the women that would come in because he'd be a total creeper to them. As this was getting progressively worse, he started to be mouthy to us, telling us to shut the F up and make his food, etc. Well, Char had enough one night when Grant mouthily said, "You better put hot peppers on this effing sandwich or I'll come back and kick your butt. I'm not paying for this if you can't do it effing right, you dumb F." Char, you want hot peppers? You got it. Now, Char pads down the bottom of his soft sub rolls that we use, and he just loads it to the edge with hot peppers and proceeds to finish making his sandwich, being careful to finish it where it won't fall apart. This guy buys it and goes home. Now, I like the hot relish our store had because it had heat, so a little could go a long way, and a lot could upset your stomach big time. Well, it did with my stomach, but this guy's sandwich had more than a cup's worth in it. So I finished my paperwork and go home, and came in the next day, and Char was still there and was out back explaining to the store owner what happened. Grant was well known by the entire staff and owner, and interrupted into a lot of laughter. Come to find out, around 6 a.m., Grant woke up and ran to the bathroom, and his screaming woke up everybody in the place he was staying, and that his butt had been on fire for the better part of the entire day. I wonder how he ate the sub without all the peppers falling out. Also found out Char, as a kind gesture, made it so he could open it from one end and unwrap it as he ate, and Grant didn't come in for a few more days, but he wasn't coming completely drunk anymore, and he'd been more polite to Char from that point on, and we had no more issues with him. Why do people act so incredibly rude and stupidly to the people making their food? It seems like they never learn. And our last story. When my daughter was little, before she started preschool, she's now 36, she would have difficulty breathing after visiting my mother-in-law's house or any place that allowed smoking. This was back in the mid-1980s when you could still smoke in restaurants and such. My wife, now ex-wife, and I do not smoke. Finally, after one such occasion that my daughter was having problems breathing while at home, it was bad enough that we took her to the clinic. After examining my daughter, the doctor asked if we smoked. After telling him no, he asked if anyone in our house or extended family did. At that time, mother-in-law was a heavy smoker and she was the only person that would smoke inside our house. We had friends that smoked come visit, but they didn't smoke in the house. The doctor explained that my daughter was showing signs of a mild allergic reaction to secondhand smoke. It was mild enough that treatment wasn't necessary, but we needed to limit or avoid exposing her to people that smoked. Mother-in-law and I had never been on good terms, but it got much worse after I posted no smoking signs inside our house. She saw them but said it didn't apply to her because she was grandma. She usually avoided visiting when I was home, and my ex wouldn't stand up to her. Finally, mother-in-law came to visit while I was home. She came strolling in, puffing away. After I asked her politely to put the cigarette out, she refused, saying that she had the right to visit her grandchildren however she wanted. I then asked her politely to leave, and she pretty much ignored me. Now I need to add something here. I was raised to be polite and to respect others, and that was reinforced by my Marine Corps training. There are some exceptions to me being a nice guy, such as putting my children or wife in danger, as mother-in-law soon found out. Since she wouldn't take me seriously and refused to leave, I physically picked her up and took her outside. At that time, she was much heavier than me, but she'd finally pushed me over my limits. I set her down in the driveway next to her car and told her to go home. I went back inside and locked the door behind me. My wife didn't say a word, but she was smiling because she knew I could get away with treating her mother like that. Of course, that wasn't the end of that fight. Our neighbors had been old drinking buddies with my wife's parents, so mother-in-law stormed over to their house and called the cops on me, claiming assault. It's a small town and I know a lot of the cops, but the two that show up I've never met. Since mother-in-law called them and met them in my driveway, by the time they started knocking on my door, they were planning to arrest me. However, I'm not dumb enough to open the door. After they hear my side and the fact that mother-in-law didn't look too roughed up, their attitude quickly changed. After showing my ID with the address given to them by mother-in-law, they stepped back from the door and talked a bit. A few minutes later, one cop comes back up, steps to talk to me, while the other one went to talk to her. His next question actually surprised me. I've had a few not-so-nice meetings with the police. He asked if I wanted to press charges, breaking and entering, trespassing, assault, domestic violence was not a thing back then, against mother-in-law. Tempting, but no. My ex is an only child, and I'm not going to forbid Grandma from seeing any of my 4 kids, as long as it's on my terms, i.e. no smoking. Instead, I said I just wanted her off my property and that she'd have to call before coming over. Side note, after this incident, she no longer talked directly to me unless I answered the phone, so that was a small victory for me. Relations with mother-in-law were pretty much gone. I rarely saw her, even though she also lived in that small town, but that's a whole different story. Entitled Grandma trained her daughter well because after 19 years, I finally had enough of ex's entitled attitude and I divorced her. Neither ex or ex-mother-in-law no longer talk to me. No hurt feelings on my part. They don't talk to each other even, something I'd wished for back when my children were little. Imagine risking the relationship with your grandchildren over a effing cigarette? Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.